Story 1. Making lemonade sounds simple enough, just squeezing a lemon, right? But you would be surprised how little juice that yields. Story 2. Being in the trades, I feel people often walk by tradespeople in any city without realizing the backbreaking labor and technical knowledge they must possess to erect a building, run plumbing, and handle electrical work. Story 3. Teaching involves the ideal of a well-behaved classroom filled with eager students quietly absorbing knowledge. However, the first year for most teachers can be unpredictable, and it is often during the second year that they truly learn effective classroom management. Story 4. I just started some exercise 2 days ago and thought it would be easier. Now I can feel every muscle in my body. However, I won't stop because I'm 16, and if I don't feel a little pain now, there will be more in the future. Story 5. Making pie is one of the most challenging tasks I have ever undertaken. Story 6. Being a decent adult is not just about reaching a certain age. It's about maintaining a sense of coherence in life. Story 7. Remembering something correctly is interesting. In crime shows, characters can often recall details with perfect clarity. The plot often relies on this. If someone makes a mistake, they are immediately suspected of being the culprit. However, in reality, unless you have an exceptional memory, your recollections are often flawed. Our memories are not only unreliable but also susceptible to distortion from new information. We filter out a significant amount of details, making it even harder to remember things accurately. Story 8. Playing the triangle. Many of my friends who are not musicians joke about how easy it is until they actually try it and end up feeling silly. Story 9. Fighting. Everyone thinks they can fight, but many have never thrown a single punch in their lives, assuming that people will just stand there and get hit. I have trained in Muay Thai for years and am currently training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The more I train, the more I realize how difficult it is and how much less I want to fight, which could be a product of getting older. Story 10. Being a train driver involves much more than just pulling a few levers. Understanding the functions of those levers is crucial. Reverser determines direction of movement. Forwards, neutral, reverse. Throttle varies by locomotive, generally with power settings ranging from 1 to 8. It is essential to know how power is generated by the locomotive, whether it produces alternating current or direct current. You must effectively apply power according to current output and the necessary kilonewtons required to pull the train. Automatic brake engages the train's brakes, but you need to release the independent brake to prevent will skid. The braking system does not function like a car. After applying the brakes, you must allow the air brake to equalize before releasing and reapplying. Avoid doing this too many times without recharging the brake to prevent losing braking power, especially when descending hills. Knowing your braking points and the effective use of automatic brakes is vital. Independent brake engages the brakes on the locomotive. An interlocking system with a magnetic valve closes if excessive air pressure, typically 100 kilopascals in brake cylinders, is applied, which cuts dynamic brake power. If running with only the engine and the magnetic valve becomes stuck, or if there is a faulty dynamic brake, the main reservoir cannot supply air to the brake cylinders. In such cases, unless you apply the emergency brake, the locomotive will have no braking power. Dynamic brake converts power generated from the throttle into braking force by reversing the field current on the traction motor. Its effectiveness decreases as speed increases. A faster armature in the traction motor reduces the perpendicular force applied within a specific time frame. Therefore, slower speeds facilitate greater current and force on the armature, allowing for more effective use of the dynamic brake to slow the train. This can be combined with the automatic brake for smooth and swift stopping. This overview highlights the extensive knowledge train drivers must possess in their daily operations to control a 5,000-ton freight train safely and punctually, irrespective of weather conditions. Monitoring brake gauges while tracking speed, stopping at stations, managing shunting, communicating with managers in train control, and executing smooth train handling are essential for minimizing wear and tear. Quick problem-solving skills are essential. Safe working guidelines vary by state in Australia, as freight trains operate across state lines. Understanding the different rules, color light signals, speed restriction distances, track force protection, braking points for speed curves, stopping regulations at stations, and responding promptly in case of signal or safe working failures or derailments is crucial. Additional paperwork and diagnostics for minor faults in the locomotive or wagons must also be part of daily responsibilities. All of these responsibilities require your attention while operating a sometimes 1.8 kilometers long, 5,000-ton freight train. Story 11. Bouldering. The reason it looks easy is that professionals have incredible grip strength that most people cannot even imagine. Story 12. Fingering or going down on a woman is often discussed, particularly regarding how many men struggle to help women achieve pleasure. While one might think that simply caring about a woman's pleasure is enough, it is more complex than that. The anatomy in that area can be intricate, and unlike self-stimulation, you only have your fingers to rely on. While it may seem easier to visualize, adult films are produced in ways that highlight certain actions, which means the experience in reality will be different and both partners may obstruct each other. Using your tongue can offer a different sensation, but it can also be tiring and restrict your breathing. Tilting your head back to extend your tongue further may lead to faster fatigue. There are several reasons why women may find fulfilling sexual experiences to be uncommon. Providing pleasure takes both practice and skill, and encountering difficulties can be discouraging, even if the partner is understanding. Story 13. Being an athlete at a professional level is quite different from being a recreational player. A significant gap in quality exists between professional athletes and those who play sports for leisure. When viewed on TV, professionals may make their skills look effortless, but it is far from easy. Story 14. Gaining muscle when you have challenging genetics. Do not let influencers tell you how easy it is. They often have exceptional genetics while using performance-enhancing drugs and being sponsored by various companies, making most of their supplements free. You see people boast, a 225-pound bench? That's easy. When I started, I could bench 185 and reach 225 pounds in 3 months. But they won't mention that their father was a former semi-professional football player or a semi-professional bodybuilder. Most people cannot even lift 225 pounds after years of training with an average genetic background. I can lift 225 pounds easily, but I have been training for over 10 years, and I could hardly bench 95 pounds at the beginning. I have challenging family genetics. I think my current maximum is around 350 pounds, which some people might still consider weak due to the time invested. Yes, you can outtrain those genetics, but without performance-enhancing drugs, your progress will be significantly slower than someone with favorable genetics. Story 15. Cutting off a toxic friend or relative seems easy, but when push comes to shove, it becomes difficult. Trauma bonding is challenging to break and one of the main reasons why people remain in toxic relationships. Story 16. Advice. It looks easy when we give it to someone, but in reality, when we face the same situation, it becomes difficult. Story 17. Getting up at 4 a.m. and sometimes 3 a.m. daily for over 40 years to go to work. I didn't understand how my dad felt when I was a child until I experienced it myself. Story 18. Effectively summarizing content is important. It is easy to be verbose and rambling, but being concise and useful is not easy. Story 19. Most musical instruments require years of practice. A truly talented guitarist or pianist seems to have their fingers floating effortlessly, but there is typically decades of dedicated practice behind their skill. Story 20. Programming is a complex task. Even a monkey could write code, but attempting to do it without documentation or assistance while ensuring that the code is error-free and bug-free is a significant challenge. Story 21. Professional golf. Professionals make it look easy on television, but in reality, a lot goes into achieving a good drive, iron shot, or putt just to make par. Story 22. Handling difficult times without someone to lean on for support is challenging, especially as we get older. Dad is no longer there to provide guidance. Our friends suggest we stop complaining and resolve our issues on our own. We need to be strong. Story 23. Fighting. Everyone thinks they can hold their own, but most have no idea how to throw a punch and tire out after a minute. Story 24. 2-hour marathons. Those runners always appear to be effortlessly maintaining their speed, but even experienced athletes struggle to maintain that pace for a mile. Story 25. Surprised that the majority of replies prove that artificial intelligence and robots are about to replace us all. Everything that expressed difficulty, a robot or artificial intelligence would have no issues performing perfectly every time, such as not blinking. We are in trouble. Story 26. Snowboarding. Many people believe they will ride down the mountain on the first day or that they will be able to perform jumps or other tricks. Story 27. Kids' toys that say some assembly required on the box can be challenging. On Christmas morning, trying to put tricky items together while excited kids bounce around is not easy. Story 28. Cooking is a hobby of mine, and I love doing it. Over the years, I have become quite skilled. However, cooking a proper from-scratch meal, especially for multiple people, and ensuring that everything is delicious and ready at the same time, main course, sides, and so on, is, in my opinion, an art form. Looking back, I kind of wish I could apologize to my mom and that I had taken it a little easier on her while growing up. Story 29. Simple car repair videos on YouTube always seem to go smoothly, with nothing dropped, nothing seized, and no swearing. I have yet to experience such car repairs. Story 30. Racing and fixing cars are both activities I engage in regularly. People often think racing is easy, saying, "There's nothing to it, you just drive." However, there is so much more to racing than just driving. Sadly, people associate racing with being easy because they use a car for commuting, which is straightforward, so they assume racing should be the same. As for fixing cars, I dislike when people say, "Oh, just plug the scanner in. It'll tell you what's wrong." If it were that simple, why don't they try fixing it themselves? Story 31. Taking accountability, admitting you are wrong, asking for help, and forgiving yourself all sound simple and may appear easy when others do it. However, when it comes time for you to do it, it can be quite challenging. Story 32. Growth. If you see stories on social media or even in movies, people have an epiphany and then say, "And then I just changed my behavior." This is hard. Knowing what is good for you and then overcoming years of coping mechanisms and habits takes a lot of work. Story 33. At 38, I picked up skiing and rock climbing. Both are not bad, and I can easily reach a mediocre level. However, when I tried the violin, I realized that to even be somewhat decent at it, you have to dedicate a lot of time and money. Story 34. Making ceramics on a pottery wheel is a uniquely humbling experience, especially when you first begin. I have improved significantly over time. Story 35. Relationships with women involve various aspects. Navigating sexual relationships can sometimes appear easier for women, as they often focus on attractive men. It is important to exit abusive relationships. Finding employment is crucial. Maintaining a job contributes to overall well-being. Living a fulfilling life as a man encompasses various responsibilities and personal growth. Story 36. Just about any specialized task for which someone is compensated. For many tasks, doing it yourself is easy until it becomes difficult. Often, you hire someone who knows how to handle things when they do not go as planned. Story 37. Fighting for your life. Seconds feel like hours, and you notice how quickly exhaustion sets in, regardless of your physical condition. Story 38. Voice acting. Everyone with a Blue Yeti thinks they can do voiceovers. The key to voice acting is not the microphone. It is the acting itself. Although, it is only a matter of time before artificial intelligence takes over that as well. Story 39. Sustaining a healthy relationship can sometimes be subjective, depending on the individuals involved. Story 40. Muscle ups and planche. I swear that anyone who can do it makes it look so easy. Then you try it. Story 41. Watch the goal Moises Caicedo scored over the weekend for Chelsea Football Club against Bournemouth. Few things look deceptively easy. Story 42. Peeing directly into one of the small holes in the urinal protector takes years of training. Story 43. Making babies is easy. No skill or talent is required. And as we see daily, anyone can do it. However, raising decent, well-rounded, and happy human beings is challenging. Story 44. Making good lattes. I worked at Starbucks. It was easy, but the drinks were not great. I worked at a real third-wave coffee shop. It required a lot of learning, practice, and skill, and the drinks were fantastic. Story 45, wall climbing. Whenever I watch a video, I think, wow, I could do that, and then later realize, nope. Story 46, wheelies on a bicycle. I see all kinds of kids performing tricks on their bikes so effortlessly, dodging obstacles with one hand on the handlebars for blocks. I've been practicing lately and found it quite challenging due to my self-preservation instincts and general inability to balance on one wheel. Hats off to them. Story 47. Golf looks simple, you swing a club and hit a ball. However, many factors influence hitting the ball straight and far. I have been playing for 15 years and still struggle. Story 48. Cornhole involves throwing a bean bag into a hole, but mastering the game requires understanding various factors such as spins, angles, humidity, wind conditions, board finishes, and the composition of the bags. These elements make the game much more complex than it appears. Story 49. Doing a simple task correctly a few times is easy, but doing it consistently is challenging. Story 50. Snooker is probably one of the hardest sports in the world to master at a high level. There are many variables requiring great accuracy and temperament. Story 51. Tennis appears to be an enjoyable sport to play casually at your local tennis court. Watching players on television, they seem to effortlessly run around the court and hit the ball accurately. However, it can be quite challenging to get to the ball and successfully hit it within the boundaries of the court. Story 52. A walk on the beach. Walking in the sand is not easy, especially when you are out of shape like me. I see people strolling along in television shows and movies, and I think they must have great leg strength. The last time I was in Biloxi, we were on the beach and all decided to walk down to the casino. It looked so close. It was an illusion. I felt like a baby giraffe by the time I got there. Story 53. Commit to exercise. Watch a motivational video. Easy. Create a weekly planner? Done. Join a gym? No problem. The real challenge is to maintain this commitment for months. Story 54. Fighting. Most people think they can throw a punch and take a punch. Most people are wrong, hopefully not fatally wrong. Story 55. Something that someone skilled does, they make it look effortless. People who excel at their craft do so with remarkable smoothness. They may not all be considered the best, but their execution appears effortless. Max Verstappen driving in Formula One. It looks easy and effortless. A few championships, no problem. Patrick Lindbergh playing Counter-Strike. Tommy Johansson playing guitar and singing. Feels like there's no limit to his talent. Bob Ross painting. There may be better artists, but he is a legend. Ronnie O'Sullivan playing snooker. This list could go on. These are just a few examples that came to mind. There are many more individuals who showcase similar abilities. Story 56. I think it's easy for someone to look elsewhere and think, oh, look how sweet she is to her boyfriend or husband. But in reality, there is a lot of work in relationships. Story 57. Taking good pictures. Everyone has a phone, so everyone believes they can take nice pictures. However, every time I use my mirrorless camera, people are amazed by the high quality of my images and the composition I create. You cannot assume you can take good pictures just because your phone received a high rating in photography. Story 58. I feel that everything that appears easy is actually difficult. I have already tried many things that prove this. Story 59. Any kind of drawing is challenging for me. I can picture a house in my mind, but actually putting it on paper is incredibly hard. The same goes for drawing a tree, people, or the sun. Essentially, I am 60 years old and draw like I did when I was in kindergarten. Story 60. The core skateboarding tricks include ollie, kickflip, heel flip, pop shove it, and 360 shove it. It took me a long time to master the ollie, pop shove it, and kickflip, and even then they were still unstable and inconsistent. I got close to a heel flip but never actually landed it, and I never came close to a 360 shove it. Story 61. Cutting bamboo is not difficult. The challenge lies in ensuring it is out of the way so you can cut the other bamboo. Can be quite awkward to navigate around existing bamboo. Story 62. Changing your own brake pads. I saw a video online, and it only took the person 3 minutes. I struggled for 2 hours. Story 63. Losing weight is often described as simply a matter of calories in versus calories out. While that statement holds truth and makes the concept seem simple, the reality is much more challenging. If it were easy, the world would not be facing an obesity crisis. Story 64. Golfing. I am 2 years in and still learning that you cannot just hit the ball with brute force to make it bend to your will. Story 65. Solving a Rubik's Cube may seem simple with its 54 pieces, but it is much more challenging than it appears. At 14 years old, I thought it would be easy. Once I realized the difficulty, my pride motivated me to persist until I solved it. It took me over 6 months, but when I finally achieved it, the feeling was incredible. Story 66. Not acting foolishly. You can observe this everywhere. Everyone is so dependent on their smartphones that they experience meltdowns and panic attacks over trivial matters. As a mentor for a fraternal organization, I find it astounding to teach them basic knowledge. Here are some things I've taught young men aged 18 to 22. Wash your entire body. Wash your clothes. Wash your dishes. Clean your home. Brush your teeth. Drink water when you're thirsty. Do not expose yourself in public, even if it's itchy, even if it's only other guys, even if they are your best friends. There is more, but this gives you a small idea. Story 67. Keeping on day to day, scraping by on what little I can save in this economy. I'm not suicidal, but some days I just don't want to wake up the next day. Story 68. I race motorcycles, and a girl once told me how hard can that be. You're just sitting there and going around in circles. I offered her the chance to ride my scooter around the block, and she quickly changed her opinion. Story 69. Replacing the clutch on your car. Those Saturday morning car shows I watched as a kid gave me an unwarranted sense of extreme confidence when it comes to car maintenance. Story 70. Not caring can be challenging. Even on days when you want to let go, it's hard not to focus on the difficulties you are facing, and that can be very frustrating. Story 71. Deciding the kind of life or job you want is important. While many factors are influenced by ourselves, external factors also play a role. It is acceptable to fail once or twice, but constantly failing signifies a lack of progress. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.